Hi guys, we are not stopping yet. So on the previous video, I think I managed to communicate about around the policies. So I'm not just gonna waste time going through that, but basically you can manage the life cycle of a blob using policies, and policies can be used for various reasons. So here I'm just gonna go through straight into discover blob storage lifecycle policies. So the storage lifecycle policies defined as a collection of rules that are written using a JSON format. Each rule has a filter set, right? And an action set. So whenever you picture this, think of a JSON structure that has one object that says filter, the other one that says action. So we'll define that when we see the structure itself. Filter set limits the rule actions to specific objects within a container, right? So, woo, so if you look at that, we're saying a filter actually, what does it do? It should filter items. So it filter what you call the set of blobs that we have into a specific number. So we're not applying this rule to all of the blobs. So by default, if you don't have a filter, I think Azure will apply whatever action set that we define there to all the what you call blobs that we have in that storage account. The action set supply the action set applies. So the action set applies the tier or delete action. So the action set can do two things. It can be the tier change, or let me just actually this tier change or delete action, right? On the filtered object. So all the objects that we got from the filter, based on the action will tell us if we want to change the tier or we want to delete the blob. Cool. The moment we've been waiting for is getting to the rule itself. So here we have a set of rules that we can run as mentioned. Then there we have basic parameters like the name of the rule, is it enabled or not, the type of the rule is a lifecycle, and the definition. So the definition, that's what we need to delve into. So here is a basic explanation of this. Rules is an array of JSON array object. At least one rule is required in the policy, so you can't have that. You can define up to 100 policies. Actually, this type of information I needed for the notes that I write at the end of the videos. So limited to 100 rules per rule. What do you call a rule that we define actually? Okay, cool. Then here we have a name that's a string. The name can only take up to 256 characters in the name. Then enabled, I think that one is pretty straightforward. So that one is pretty straightforward. I'm not going to explain that. Then when we have a type there, it's an enum. That's the current valid type is lifecycle. So this type thing here is actually an enum, but the only value that is supported at the moment is that. Then definition is an object that details the lifecycle rule, right? Definition is made up of a filter and action set. Cool. A more detailed rule on the definition, as we mentioned, we have filters there, we have actions. So there on the filters, you can see what it's filtering on. It's a type, we want blobs, and the prefix is it's gonna look for all the what do you call blobs that are in container one, and after that they contain this particular name called foo. So that's the blob that we're targeting in there. That starts with foo. So in this particular rule, if you look at it on the actions, there's base blob and there's tiers 2 and there's a condition, and tierToArchive, there's a condition, and there's another condition for delete. And snapshot, part of actions, delete after 90 days. I don't know what snapshot does, but if you read here, it says tier blobToCool tier after 30 days of last modification. So if we add our what do you call blob in a day, let's say for example today, then after 30 days from today it will just take it out from a hot what do you call access tier to a cool type of functionality. Then there we have tier blob to archive 90 days after last modification. So from today, 90 days later, if the blob is still not modified or whatever, it will then push it to the archive tier. Then it deletes the blob after 2,555 days. So that's 7 years according to that calculation. Then snapshot there, delete blob snapshots 90 days after snapshot creation. So if when you upload a blob and there's a snapshot that was created of that particular blob, it deletes that after 90 days essentially. That's what the rule says. Rule filters. Filters use a logical end. So here, this is particularly important that they use a logical end when multiple conditions are applied. Filter props, so blobType, which is an array that is required. Then we have a prefixMatch, which is array, not required, starts with container name, limits to 10 prefix. So here we have a limit that needs to be applied there. blobIndexMatch is an array, not required, it's limited to 10 index tag key on value. That's the properties. So if you look at this, here you have on the filter, you have blobTypes. There's an array, it gives one value prefix. A match, there's an array as well, it gives one value. But they say the maximum that it can take there is 10 for prefixMatch. There you can give it up to 10 values. Then this one, you can give it as many blobTypes that you have in Azure. So that's probably the limit there. blobIndexMatch is an array that's limited to 10. I don't think we are using it in our filters, but it's there for use. So tierToCool, that's what you call a set of actions that you can take. There's tierToCool, enableAutoTierToHotFromCool. Then you have tierToArchive, then a delete. So this one, if let's say, for example, you set up a rule that says if this thing gets access this many times, after this, take it from a cool storage to a hot storage, essentially. So that's this one is the reverse of that one. That one will take it from hot to cool. This one will take it from cool to hot, essentially. So all of this are supported for block blobs. The delete one is for both block blobs and appended. So this one does not apply to snapshots. Yeah, okay, cool. If you define more than one condition on the same blob, lifecycle management applies the least expensive action to the blob. For example, action delete is cheaper than action to tierToArchive. Action tierToArchive is cheaper than action tierToCool. So it says it will apply the cheaper one. So when that one happens, cheaper action applied if more than one action defined. So in that case, it will, technically speaking, if we are comparing between toArchive and delete, it will delete it. Right, cool. Then action run conditions, basically that's what they're giving us. They'll run this based on days after modification greater than, days after creation greater than. That's when you apply the rules. Those are your options. So this is what we have here, days after modification. Here we have days after creation. So those are the two options, which is cool. Then here we implement blob storage lifecycle policies, can add, edit, and delete policies using Azure Portal, Azure PowerShell, Azure CLI, and the REST API. How to manage policies in Azure Portal. Okay, cool. Create storage, management policies, create account name. Okay, cool. That's the command there. I hope to do that. Perhaps I can stop the video here, then do this particular action, or I can come back. Let me come back. Let me just see how far we are. Okay, cool. Change blob. Okay, cool. Let me just go through the content and I'll come back to the activity on the next video. Rehydrate blob data from archive tier. Blob in archive cannot be read or modified, considered offline. So when a blob is taken to archive, you can't access it, or you can't access it on your URL or anything like that. So in the portal itself, you'll see that it's on an archive state. And when you try doing other things, trying to read the content or trying to download it, you won't have that ability. I'll show that on the video. To read or modify a blob in an archive, you need to rehydrate it first to hot or cool tier. So you must take it out of archive, put it in cool, or take it out of archive and put it in hot before you do that. Then there's two ways to hydrate a blob from archive, right? One of the ways that you can do this, you can copy an archived blob to an online tier using CopyBlob or URL recommended by Microsoft. So this copy action is actually recommended by Microsoft. Alternatively, that's what we've been talking about, change the blob's access tier to an online tier. So moving it to cool or what do you call cool or hot access tier. So you can do it either this way, changing its what do you call archive tier, or you can copy it. Rehydration is time consuming, and Microsoft recommends rehydrating larger blobs for optimal performance. Since several small blob rehydration currently takes more time. So if you are rehydrating multiple blobs, it takes more time than actually rehydrating one big one. Rehydration priority can, in terms of rehydration priority, can specify priority using this particular property. In your request to rehydrate, you can actually specify this header item when using the copy blob or the URL operation. Standard priority. So there's two types of priorities. We have standard and we have high priority. So standard priority rehydration in the order of request can take up to 15 hours. High priority prioritizes over standard priority request and can complete under 1 hour for objects below 10 gig. So 1 hour for 10 gig. That's how rehydration would work based on your request and setting it to high priority. When copying a blob in archive, you need to give the new instance a different name and cannot override blob in archive. Source blob remains unmodified. Copying to online destination, the tier is only supported in the same storage account. So if I'm copying to an online tier, technically speaking, I should be doing that in the same storage account, not another storage account that sits somewhere in heaven. Cannot copy blob to destination that is also archive. So copy blob does not work when you are taking it to archive. So if you are copying it from archive to archive, that's like doing the same operation twice, and that's not supported. The following table shows the behavior of blob copy operation depending on the tiers of the source and destination blob. Hot tier destination, it's supported by hot tier source, supported by cool tier source, supported by archive. Cool tier destination, supported by source, supported by cool, supported by archive. Archive tier destination, it is supported to send it to hot, it's supported to send to cool. It is not supported to send to what do you call archive destination. So that's the only one that's not supported when you are doing a copy operation. Change blobs access tier to an online tier, right? Once operation has been started to rehydrate a blob, it cannot be cancelled, right? You cannot cancel a rehydration process. During rehydration, blob shows an archive until rehydration operation completes. NB, changing blob tier does not affect the modification date, and hence issues can occur when policies are in place, right? So if I am doing a tier change and I'm not copying the blob from archive to whatever access tier, but I'm doing the tier change on the portal, what would happen is the modification date of that particular blob will not change. As a result, if I have a policy that says after 90 days or whatever, it will execute that policy against that blob, and that blob will go back to what do you call to the archive tier. So there's something to look out to. Thank you very much.